What if everything you've been taught about being good is a lie designed to keep you weak? What if the path to respect, influence, and true power lie not in turning the other cheek, but in understanding the ruthless game being played all around you? Disrespect is never loud at first. It whispers a smirk, a tone, a subtle cut. Ignore it once, and you've already lost. Most people laugh it off. They brush it aside, thinking it will go away. But Machiavelli teaches us the opposite. He understood something that weak people never learn. Respect is not earned. It is enforced. You see, when someone disrespects you, they're not just attacking your dignity. They're testing your power. They're checking if you're worth their fear. And every time you let it slide, you're telling them the answer is no. I've studied power dynamics for years, and I can tell you this. The people who get walked all over aren't necessarily weaker. They just don't understand the game being played. They think being nice means accepting garbage treatment. They think turning the other cheek makes them noble. But in a world where everyone is competing for resources, attention, and respect, being overly nice all the time isn't just naive. It's a catastrophic strategic blunder. It marks you as prey. It tells predators that you're safe to attack because you won't fight back. Today, we're diving deep into the darkest, most effective way to handle disrespect. This isn't about losing your temper or throwing tantrums. This is about cold, calculated dominance. This is about becoming someone who others think twice before crossing. This is about transforming from a victim of subtle social aggression into a strategic player in the arena of human interaction. I'm going to show you 5 psychological tactics that will transform how people treat you. These aren't feel-good strategies that sound nice on paper. These are tested methods that actually work in the real world, methods that Machiavelli himself would recognize. By the end of this video, you'll understand why silence can now be more powerful than words, why consistency builds fear, and why the most quietly powerful people are those who need nothing from anyone. You'll learn how to read disrespect as intelligence about people's true character and how to use that information to your advantage. This isn't about becoming a monster. It's about becoming someone who commands natural respect through their mere presence. Someone who doesn't have to demand respect because they already have it. Now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. Disrespect sharpens my awareness. But before we start, let me ask you something. How many times have you replayed a disrespectful encounter in your head, thinking of all the things you should have said? How many times have you felt that burning frustration of being treated poorly and not knowing how to respond? That ends today. Today, you learn the rules of a game that most people don't even know they're playing. The hidden nature of disrespect. Let's start with what most people get completely wrong about disrespect. They think it comes as a punch to the face. Obvious, direct, impossible to miss. But that's not how smart people disrespect you. That's not how the game is really played. Real disrespect is a snake. It slithers in quietly, disguised as harmless jokes, friendly teasing, or innocent mistakes. It's the coworker who always interrupts you in meetings. It's the friend who makes cutting remarks and then says, "Just kidding." It's the family member who dismisses your opinions with a wave of their hand. Here's how it typically unfolds. First, they test the waters with light teasing. Maybe they make a joke about your appearance, your choices, or your abilities. They're watching your reaction carefully. If you laugh along or brush it off, they've learned something important about you. You're safe to attack. Next, the jokes become a little meaner, a little more personal. The dismissive body language becomes more obvious. They start interrupting you more frequently. They begin excluding you from conversations or decisions. Each step is small enough that confronting it seems petty, but together they form a pattern of systematic disrespect. If you continue to tolerate this behavior, thinking you're being the bigger person, something terrible happens. You train them to see you as someone who accepts poor treatment. You become their emotional punching bag, the person they can safely dump their frustrations on without consequences. I've seen this pattern destroy relationships, careers, and self-esteem. Good people who thought kindness would win the day found themselves surrounded by users, manipulators, and bullies who saw their kindness as weakness, a weakness they were all too eager to exploit. This isn't just about personal pain, it's about a profound miscalculation of human nature, a blind spot that leaves you vulnerable. Machiavelli understood this dynamic perfectly. He lived in a world where showing weakness could literally destroy you. He knew that people are constantly testing each other, looking for vulnerabilities they can exploit. He wrote extensively about how power works in practice, not in theory. Here's the truth that weak people can't handle. Thousands. The wrong time is approval. When you say nothing in response to disrespect, you're not being mature. You're being complicit. You're sending a subtle but unmistakable signal. I am not important enough to defend myself. When you laugh along, with jokes at your expense, you're not being a good sport. You're giving permission for more of the same. When you let something slide just this once, you're not being understanding. You're teaching them that your boundaries are suggestions, not rules. You're showing them that you don't value yourself enough to defend your own dignity. This is why some people spend their entire lives being stepped on while others command respect wherever they go. It's not about luck, looks, or natural charisma. It's about understanding how human psychology actually works and responding accordingly. The people who get respect understand that every interaction is a negotiation. Every conversation contains subtle power dynamics. Every relationship has an unspoken hierarchy, and that hierarchy gets established through thousands of small moments where respect is either given or taken. Most people are playing checkers while a few are playing chess. The checkers players react emotionally to each move. The chess players are thinking several moves ahead, building patterns that serve their long-term interests. Today you learn to play chess. Number 1, silence as a strategy. The first tool in your kit isn't words. It's silence, but not weak silence. Strategic silence. There's a massive difference in understanding that difference will change everything. Weak silence is when you don't respond because you're afraid, hurt, or don't know what to say. This type of silence makes you look like a victim. People can sense your emotional turmoil, and it encourages them to push further. Strategic silence is completely different. It's when you choose not to respond as a calculated decision. You're not hurt or confused. You're evaluating. You're making them wait while you decide if they're worth your energy. How this works in practice. Someone makes a disrespectful comment to you. Instead of immediately defending yourself, explaining your position, or firing back, you simply stop talking. You look at them directly. You let the silence stretch until it becomes uncomfortable. During that pause, something fascinating happens in their brain. First, they realize their words are hanging in the air with no response. The conversation has stopped and it's their fault. Second, they start to question whether they crossed a line. Third, they begin to fill that empty space with their own anxiety and guilt. Most people are terrified of silence. They feel compelled to fill it with words, explanations, or nervous laughter. But when you're comfortable with silence, when you can sit in it without flinching, you have power over people who can't handle it. Machiavelli once said, "Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved." This silence creates a type of fear. Not the fear of physical harm, but the fear of unpredictability. They can't read you. They can't predict how you'll respond. And unpredictable people are dangerous people because you never know what they might do. Let me give you a real example. You're in a group conversation, and someone makes a joke at your expense. Everyone laughs. The normal response would be to laugh along, make a joke, back, or defend yourself. Instead, you do nothing. You just look at the person who made the joke with a completely neutral expression. The laughter dies down. The silence grows. People start to feel uncomfortable. The joke maker realizes their comment didn't land the way they expected. They might even apologize or try to explain what they meant without saying a word. You've shifted the entire dynamic of the room. This works because you've disrupted the expected pattern. They expected you to play along with their disrespect. Instead, you gave them nothing to work with. You became a mirror that reflected their own behavior back at them, forcing them to confront what they just did. The beauty of this approach is that you maintain complete control. You're not reactive. You're not emotional. You're just present. And that presence becomes intimidating because they can't manipulate or predict you. Remember, silence is not absence. Silence is control. It's the pause before the storm. It's the loaded question that demands an answer. And in a world full of people who can't stop talking, the person who knows when to stay quiet holds all the power. But here's the key. Your silence must come from a place of strength, not weakness. You're not staying quiet because you're hurt or don't know what to say. You're staying quiet because you're choosing to withhold your response until you decide they deserve one. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My silence speaks volumes. Practice this in small situations first. When someone makes a thoughtless comment, just pause. Look at them. Let them feel the weight of their own words. You'll be amazed at how quickly people start watching what they say around you. Number 2, relentless consistency. Here's where most people completely destroy their own power. They set a boundary once and think that's enough. They handle disrespect well one time and expect people to remember forever. But boundaries mean nothing if they collapse the first time. They're seriously tested. Human beings are like water. They flow toward the path of least resistance. If your boundaries have holes in them, people will find those holes and exploit them. If your standards are negotiable, people will negotiate them down to nothing. This is why consistency is everything. Not just consistency in big moments, but consistency in every single interaction. Every time someone disrespects you, your response must be predictable, cold, calculated, unwavering. Think about the people in your life who command the most respect. I guarantee you they're consistent in how they handle poor treatment. They don't let things slide sometimes and get upset other times. They have clear standards and they enforce those standards every single time. Now, think about the people who get walked all over. They're inconsistent. They let small disrespect slide, hoping to avoid conflict. They make exceptions for people they like. They have good days and bad days when it comes to standing up for themselves. This inconsistency trains people to keep testing their limits. It's like playing a slot machine. Sometimes you get a reaction, sometimes you don't. Uncertainty actually encourages more attempts because people want to see if this time will be different. Machiavelli understood this principle deeply. He knew that power is repetition. Each time you enforce your standards consistently, your reputation grows stronger. Each time you make an exception, your power weakens. What happens when you become relentlessly consistent in handling disrespect? People start to predict your reactions. They know that certain behaviors will have certain consequences. This predictability creates caution, and caution creates respect. Let me give you some examples of what consistency looks like in practice. Someone interrupts you in a meeting. Every single time this happens, you stop talking, look at them, and wait for them to finish before you continue. You don't sometimes ignore it and sometimes call it out. You always respond the same way. Someone makes jokes at your expense. Every single time you don't laugh. You don't smile. You don't play along. Your face remains neutral, and you continue the conversation as if they didn't speak. No exceptions. Someone tries to dump their emotional problems on you when you're busy. Every single time you say something like, "I can see you're upset, but I can't talk right now." You don't sometimes listen out of guilt and sometimes set boundaries. Machiavelli once said, "Men are so simple and so much inclined to obey immediate necessities that a deceiver will never lack victims for his deceptions." The immediate necessity here is avoiding your consistent consequences. When people know that disrespecting you will always result in the same cold response, they start policing their own behavior around you. They learn that you're not someone who makes exceptions. But here's the part most people struggle with. Your consistency can't just apply to big violations. It has to cover the smallest infractions too. The slight eye roll when you're speaking, the dismissive tone when they respond to you, the subtle body language that communicates contempt. All of it gets the same treatment. All of it receives the same measured, consistent response. This might seem harsh to people who are used to letting things slide, but it's actually more merciful than the alternative. When people know exactly where they stand with you, they can adjust their behavior accordingly. They don't have to guess whether today is a day when you'll tolerate disrespect. They know you never will, so they don't try. It's the inconsistent people who cause the most confusion and drama in relationships. Nobody knows what to expect from them. Sometimes they're doormats. Sometimes they explode. This unpredictability makes everyone around them walk on eggshells. But when you're consistently firm about your standards, people relax around you. They know the rules. They know what's acceptable and what isn't. This clarity actually makes relationships easier, not harder. Now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. My standards never bend. Start small with this. Pick one type of disrespectful behavior that you currently tolerate sometimes. Maybe it's interrupting. Maybe it's dismissive comments. Maybe it's being kept waiting. From now on, respond to that behavior the exact same way, every single time it happens. Watch how quickly people's behavior around you starts to change when they realize your boundaries aren't negotiable. Number 3, clear and effective response. Now we get to the part that separates the truly powerful from everyone else. When someone disrespects you, your response cannot be proportionate to their action. It must be disproportionate. Why this works? An ordinary response is forgettable. If someone makes a cutting remark and you make one back, it's just another argument. If someone dismisses you and you argue with them, it's just another disagreement. These interactions blend together in people's minds. But if someone makes a cutting remark and you respond with complete emotional withdrawal, that's unforgettable. If someone dismisses you and you create distance and limit contact with them, that leaves a permanent impression. This doesn't mean losing control or throwing tantrums. Quite the opposite. It means your response should be calculated to create lasting impact. The goal is to make them remember the consequences of crossing you every time they consider doing it again. Let me give you some concrete examples. Someone makes a joke at your expense in front of others. Instead of laughing along or making a joke back, you look at them with complete seriousness and say, "That wasn't funny." Then you continue the conversation as if they no longer exist. Or better yet, you don't say anything at all. You simply excuse yourself from the situation entirely. No explanation, no drama. You just become unavailable to them for the rest of the event. Here's another example. A friend consistently shows up late to plans with you, showing they don't value your time. Instead of complaining about it or making jokes about their tardiness, you start making plans without them. When they ask why they weren't invited, you simply say, "I didn't think you'd want to come since you always seem to have other priorities." The key is that your response should create discomfort that lasts longer than their original, disrespectful action. They should find themselves thinking about your reaction, days or weeks later, wondering if they pushed too far. Machiavelli once said, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." The goal here isn't to be cruel for the sake of cruelty. It's to be memorable. When someone thinks about disrespecting you in the future, they should immediately remember the last time they tried it and the uncomfortable consequences that followed. This approach works because it violates people's expectations. They expected you to play along, to be a good sport, to take it on the chin like you always do. Instead, they got ice. They got distance. They got a masterclass in cause and effect. Most people respond to disrespect with either doormat behavior or explosive anger. Both of these responses are forgettable because they're predictable. The doormat response encourages more disrespect. The explosive response makes you look unstable and damages your reputation. But a cold, measured, disproportionate response, that's something they'll remember. That's something that makes them think twice before testing you again. What disproportionate consequences might look like in different situations. Someone talks over you in a group setting. Instead of fighting for airtime, you simply stop participating in group conversations when they're present. You're polite but distant. They get the message that their behavior has cost them your engagement. Someone makes dismissive comments about your goals or achievements. Instead of defending yourself, you stop sharing personal information with them entirely. They no longer get access to your inner world because they've proven they can't be trusted with it. A family member constantly criticizes your choices. Instead of arguing or trying to prove them wrong, you start limiting your time with them. You become politely unavailable for family events they attend. You don't make a big announcement about it. You just become harder to reach. The punishment must speak louder than the offense. A small slight gets met with significant consequence. This creates a lasting impression and makes them calculate the cost before disrespecting you. Again, remember, you're not trying to be liked here. You're trying to be respected. And respect comes from understanding that there are real consequences for crossing certain lines. People who truly respect you will appreciate your standards because it means they can trust you to maintain them in other areas of life, too. People who don't like your standards were probably taking advantage of your previous lack of boundaries anyway. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My responses send a clear message. Think about the last time someone disrespected you and you just let it slide. What would a disproportionate response have looked like? What consequence would have been memorable enough to prevent future violations? Start applying this principle to new situations as they arise. Number 4, crafting the dark image. Here's something most people completely miss about power: respect. Your actions matter, but your aura matters more. The way people perceive you before you even speak determine how they'll treat you for the rest of the interaction. You need to craft an image of someone who shouldn't be tested. Not through aggression or loud behavior, but through controlled intensity, through the quiet suggestion that crossing you would be an expensive mistake. This image gets built through dozens of small, consistent signals over time. The way you carry yourself when you walk into a room. The way you speak, measured, deliberate, never rushed. The way you handle conflict when others are watching. The way you respond to both praise and criticism with equal composure. When someone sees you shut down, disrespect with cold precision, they make a mental note. They file you under people not to mess with. This reputation starts to precede you into every new interaction you have. Think about the people in your life who command natural respect. They don't have to announce their standards because their presence communicates those standards. They don't have to threaten consequences because everyone already understands there will be consequences. This isn't about being intimidating in an obvious way. It's about being someone who clearly has their act together. Someone who knows their worth and expects others to recognize it too. Someone whose time and attention feel valuable because they treat them as valuable. Machiavelli once said, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. What you want to appear to be is untouchable. Someone who has better things to do than argue with people. who don't understand boundaries. Someone whose respect must be earned, not assumed. Someone who makes calculated decisions about who gets access to their energy. Here's how you build this image practically. You become selective about everything. Who gets your warmth? Who gets your time? Who gets your attention? Who gets second chances? This selectivity communicates that these things have value. When someone disrespects you in public, your response should be swift, calm, and definitive. No emotional reactions, no heated arguments, just cold consequence delivered with the efficiency of someone who has dealt with this before and knows exactly how to handle it. People should feel a slight tension when they're about to say something disrespectful to you. Not because you're scary in an aggressive way, but because you're clearly someone who has standards and isn't afraid to enforce them. Your reputation should precede you. When people mention your name in conversations, others should nod with respect, not roll their eyes or make jokes. This doesn't happen by accident. It happens through careful, consistent cultivation of how you show up in the world. Let me give you some specific ways to build this image. Never chase anyone for their attention or approval. If someone doesn't respond to your messages, don't send follow-ups. If someone cancels plans, don't immediately offer alternative dates. Let them come to you. Never over-explain your decisions or justify your boundaries. When you set a limit, state it once clearly and then enforce it without discussion. People who argue with your boundaries are testing to see if they're negotiable. Never tolerate disrespect just to keep the peace. Every time you let something slide, you chip away at the image you're building. Every time you enforce your standards, you strengthen it. Be consistent in your energy levels. Don't be overly excited one day and withdrawn the next. Maintain a steady, controlled presence that people can rely on but can't manipulate. The most powerful people in any room are often the quietest ones. They don't need to prove anything to anyone. Their presence alone commands attention and respect. This is the energy you're cultivating. This image serves you in countless ways. Difficult people avoid you because they know you're not an easy target. Quality people are drawn to you because they respect your self-respect. Opportunities come your way because people know you're someone who gets things done without drama. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. My presence commands respect. Start paying attention to how you show up in different situations. Are you consistent? Do you project strength or neediness? Do people seem to naturally respect your boundaries, or are they constantly testing them? Your answers will tell you what image you're currently projecting and what needs to change. Number 5, higher Machiavellian strategy. Now we move to the advanced level, where you stop taking disrespect personally and start seeing it as valuable intelligence about the people around you. This shift in perspective changes everything. Every time someone disrespects you, they're giving you information about their character, their insecurities, and their true feelings toward you. Instead of getting emotional about it, start collecting this intelligence like a scientist gathering data. Who disrespects you when you succeed? That's envy revealing itself. Who disrespects you when other people aren't around? That's cowardice. Who disrespects you to your face, but acts nice when others are present? That's calculated manipulation. Who disrespects you when you set boundaries? Those are the people who were benefiting from your lack of boundaries. Who gets angry when you start demanding respect? Those are the people who preferred it when you didn't. Respect yourself. Machiavelli once said, "Keep your friends close and your enemies closer." But first you need to identify who your enemies actually are. Many people spend years being friendly with individuals who secretly resent them simply because they never paid attention to the subtle signs of disrespect that revealed people's true feelings. This intelligence becomes incredibly valuable for making decisions about relationships, career moves, and life choices. You now know who to trust with important information, who to exclude from opportunities, and who to watch carefully, because they're not on your side. Let me give you some examples of how to read disrespect as intelligence. A coworker consistently interrupts you in meetings, but never interrupts the boss. This tells you they see you as lower status and are trying to maintain that hierarchy. They're not someone to collaborate with on important projects. A friend makes cutting jokes about your appearance, but never about your successful friends. This reveals insecurity and resentment about your looks or success. They're not someone to celebrate achievements with because they can't handle your wins. A family member criticizes your life choices, but praises similar choices made by others in the family. This shows favoritism and possibly jealousy. They're not someone to seek advice from because their opinions are biased against you. Someone acts respectful when you're in a position of power, but becomes dismissive when your circumstances change. This reveals they only respect your position, not you as a person. They're not someone to count on during difficult times. This perspective shift is liberating because it removes the personal sting from disrespectful behavior. Instead of thinking, "How dare they treat me this way?" Start thinking, "Thank you for showing me who you really are. Before I trusted you with something important." Disrespect becomes a filter that helps you identify low-quality people before you invest too much time, energy, or trust in them. It's like having a security system that alerts you to threats before they can do real damage. Most people ignore these warning signs because they want to believe the best about everyone. They make excuses for disrespectful behavior, hoping it was just a bad day or a misunderstanding. This tendency to give people the benefit of the doubt repeatedly gets them hurt. Smart people pay attention to patterns of behavior over time. They notice when someone consistently treats them worse than they treat others. They recognize when someone's actions don't match their words. They use this information to make informed decisions about relationships. Machiavelli understood that human nature is fairly predictable once you know what to look for. People who disrespect you in small ways will disrespect you in bigger ways if given the opportunity. People who violate minor boundaries will violate major ones when it serves their interests. This is why treating disrespect as intelligence is so powerful. It allows you to predict future behavior and protect yourself accordingly. You can adjust your level of trust, intimacy, and investment in relationships based on how people actually treat you, not how they say they feel about you. The beautiful thing about this approach is that it makes you emotionally bulletproof. When someone disrespects you, you don't take it as a reflection of your worth. You take it as information about their character. This keeps you calm, analytical, and strategic. Instead of reactive and emotional, people reveal their true nature in how they treat those they think can't hurt them. Pay attention to how others treat service workers, subordinates, and family members. This shows you what they're really like when they think there are no consequences. Now I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. Disrespect reveals truth. Start keeping track of patterns in how people treat you versus how they treat others. Notice who consistently shows you less respect and ask yourself what that reveals about their true feelings toward you. Use this information to make better decisions about who deserves your time, trust, and energy. The psychology behind disrespect. Let me share something that will change how you see disrespectful behavior forever. Most disrespect isn't really about you. It's about the person doing it. Understanding this psychology gives you incredible power because you can predict and counter their behavior. People disrespect others for predictable reasons. Sometimes it's insecurity. They need to put someone down to feel better about themselves. Sometimes it's dominance. They're testing to see if they can establish themselves as higher status. Sometimes it's fear. They're trying to discourage you from succeeding because your success makes them feel inadequate. Sometimes it's simply habit. They've learned that disrespectful behavior gets them what they want with certain types of people. So they try it with everyone to see who will tolerate it. Here's what's fascinating about human psychology. Most people who dish out disrespect can't handle receiving it. They're used to being the aggressor, not the target. When you respond to their disrespect with calculated coldness, they often become confused and uncomfortable. This happens because disrespectful people typically choose targets they perceive as weak or unlikely to fight back. When you don't react the way they expected, when you don't get flustered or defensive, it disrupts their entire strategy. They were counting on you to either take it quietly or respond emotionally. Both of those responses would have served their purposes. The quiet acceptance would have established their dominance. The emotional response would have made you look unstable, while they appeared calm. But when you respond with strategic silence, consistent boundaries, and calculated consequences, you flip the script entirely. Suddenly, they're the ones who look petty and aggressive. They're the ones who appear to be picking on someone who won't engage with their drama. This is why the techniques we've discussed are so effective. They're designed to work with human psychology, not against it. They turn people's own disrespectful tendencies into weapons that backfire on them. Understanding this psychology also helps you stay calm during disrespectful encounters. When you realize that their behavior is about their own issues and insecurities, it becomes much easier to respond strategically instead of emotionally. You're not trying to convince them to like you or prove that you deserve better treatment. You're simply making it clear that disrespectful behavior toward you comes with costs they might not want to pay. Most people who habitually disrespect others are looking for easy targets. When you make yourself a difficult target, someone whose boundaries are firm and whose consequences are real, they typically move on to easier prey. This isn't about being mean or cruel. It's about understanding how human dynamics actually work and responding accordingly. Kind people can have boundaries. Nice people can demand respect. Good people can refuse to tolerate poor treatment. The techniques we've discussed aren't just about handling individual incidents of disrespect. They're about fundamentally changing how people perceive and interact with you over time. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, but when it does happen, it's permanent. As you consistently apply these principles, something remarkable occurs. Your reputation begins to precede you. People start to hear about you before they meet you. And what they hear is that you're someone who should be treated with respect. This reputation becomes self-reinforcing. When people expect to respect you, they usually do. When they've heard that you don't tolerate poor treatment, they're less likely to test your boundaries. When they know that crossing you has real consequences, they think twice before trying it. This doesn't mean you become feared or disliked. Quite the opposite. People generally respect others who respect themselves. They're drawn to individuals who have clear standards and the backbone to maintain them. They prefer dealing with people whose boundaries are clear and consistent. Think about it from their perspective. Would you rather interact with someone whose limits are unpredictable, who might explode over small things, or tolerate major violations, or would you prefer dealing with someone whose standards are clear and fairly enforced? Most people find it easier to respect clear boundaries than to navigate the emotional minefield of someone who has no boundaries at all. Knowing where they stand with you actually makes relationships less stressful, not more. Over time, you'll notice that the quality of people in your life improves. Low-quality individuals who were attracted to your previous tolerance for disrespect will naturally drift away. High-quality people who are possibly keeping their distance because they didn't respect how you let others treat you will begin to engage more. This shift in the types of people you attract and keep in your life compounds over time. You find yourself surrounded by individuals who naturally treat you well because those are the only types of people who stick around. Your professional life improves because colleagues and superiors see you as someone who commands respect. Your personal relationships become healthier because you no longer tolerate partners or friends who don't value you properly. This transformation requires patience and consistency. There will be times when old acquaintances test your new boundaries, trying to revert to previous patterns. There will be moments when you're tempted to let something slide just this once to avoid conflict. But remember, every time you maintain your standards, you're making an investment in your future self. Every boundary you enforce is a deposit in the bank of your reputation. Every consequence you follow through on is a building block in the foundation of respect you're constructing. The person who learns to handle disrespect with calculated, control and strategic responses becomes someone others naturally respect. They become someone who doesn't need to ask for better treatment because they've created the conditions that make it inevitable.